I just want to expand on a video I made a few minutes ago about the entire history of our place in the universe in 5 words: maths, physics, chemistry, biology, psychology. Just to explain a little bit what I mean by that. And this is just arrant speculation, you know, so feel free to disregard it. But it seems to me that the stuff of physics is, you know, the things that physics talks about are ultimately mathematical entities. I'm not just talking about particle physics, although that's obviously the cutting edge of it, but I'm also talking about physics on the grand scale. You know, when it's talking about, I mean, it might, of course it uses words like energy or field or particle or dimension. It uses these terms, but those are just the natural language placeholders for what are ultimately mathematical symbols, mathematical symbol manipulation. And physicists who are really working are really, they're not moving particles about, they're not moving stuff around, they're moving numbers around and operators, mathematical operators around, those kind of things. So the language, not only is the language of physics maths, but the stuff of physics, I think, is mathematics. Shifting the scale a bit, the stuff of chemistry is physics, I think. And here I'm just reminded of this great series on TV right now on the BBC about the kind of history of chemistry. And a couple of weeks ago there was one on Mendeleev, who was the originator of the periodic table of the elements. And what he showed there is that, you know, there's a completely clear and predictable relationship between the nature of chemical elements and their physical structure, their structure as described by physics, particularly things like the number of electrons in the electron shell, which, as I say, completely determine their reactivity, their valency, you know, some of their physical properties, what kind of crystals they might form, all that kind of stuff is the stuff of physics. So chemistry is describable in terms of physics. The stuff of chemistry is physics. Similarly, biology, the stuff of biology, I would say, is chemistry. You can't make a biological entity directly from physics. You have to make it via chemistry. And all of the language of biology ultimately moves around chemical symbols. It is about chemistry. Obviously dioxy, whatever it's called now, deoxyribonucleic acid being the most evident, but all of the other processes that make up you know, metabolic processes and make up the various life processes that we associate with biology are chemical processes. That's the stuff of bios, chemicals. So biology is made out of chemistry, chemistry is made out of physics, physics is made out of maths, and I would say psychology is made out of biology. The whole idea of psyche and psychology and mind and thought and consciousness, cognition, feeling, perception, all of the stuff, the language of psychology itself, ultimately grounds out in biology. There is no psychology of inanimate matter, there is no psychology of trees, there is no psychology of trains and fields. There's only psychology of biological organisms. In fact, there's only psychology of certain kinds of biological organisms, but you could probably find a way to extend it. In fact, there are. Yeah, scrap that. There are psychologies of very simple biological organisms, but it is made out of biology. And a lot of the way that psychology proceeds is by analysing biology. You know, and I'm here, I guess I'm particularly interested here in kind of neuroscience and the relationship between the science of the brain and psychology, but also, you know, the relationships between biological organisms, you know, the various branches of social psychology, the relationships between biological organisms and their environment, which again features as a branch of psychology, and biological organisms and other life forms. So just to recap, I'm saying that psychology is made out of biology, biology is made out of physics, physics is made out of bullshit. Psychology is made out of biology, biology out of chemistry, chemistry out of physics, physics out of maths. And I think and again this is just speculation, I think the history of the universe is the history of that kind of progression and the complexities that implies. You know, assuming that the universe started out with something very simple, probably something like the mathematical event that George Spencer Brown talks about in the Laws of Form, the mathematician George Spencer Brown. He says a universe comes into being when a space is divided or split apart. That's one of the first lines in his mathematics, boundary maths. So the universe starts simple, complexifies through mathematics into physics, complexifies again through physics into chemistry, gets more complex through chemistry into biology, and presumably, although I'm not sure about this, complexifies more through chemistry into psychology. So that's what I mean by that. I think there are a couple of, I might have time on this, I'll give it a go. There are a couple of things which are interesting about that, I think. Yeah, one will take too long to talk about. The one I'm thinking about right now is that, to me at least, that seems like a relatively orderly procession of disciplines, or of languages, or of increasing stages of complexity. And I think when we're looking for explanations, I think we would have to follow the logic of that progression. I don't think it makes sense, for example, to talk about psychology in terms of physics. I think, or to talk about psychology in terms of chemistry even. I think if you wanted to talk about psychology, you would have to look for biology for its for its underpinnings. And that might be biology, as I say, in relation to other life forms or environment or whatever. But I think you'd have to look for the biological components to talk about psychology. And similarly with further on down. Which is why I think, for me at least, I find it sometimes a bit frustrating when people miss out one of those gaps. So they talk about some aspect of psychology, like consciousness, for example, or like perception, or like emotion. But they talk about that in terms of physics, or in terms of cosmology, which for me is a branch of physics. It talks about, I think it talks about fields and dimensions and all the things that cosmology tends to talk about is physics, as far as I can see it. So talking about consciousness in terms of the physics of cosmology, cosmic consciousness, all that kind of stuff, for me it misses out the stages. To get to psychology, you've got to go through chemistry and biology first. And similarly with chemistry, some people talk about the relationship between chemistry and psychology. And it's certainly true that if you do administer certain psychoactive chemicals or put them into your body, your psychology will definitely change. But it doesn't just change without any intermediaries. The chemistry changes your biology, and the biology changes your consciousness. And it is trackable, I think. So, yeah, I think I would like to, I don't know if there's any truth in this really, but I would certainly like to see that fleshed out a bit, that idea. I'll try and do some fleshing out purely speculatively. But it seems to me that that makes kind of sense. That the 5 days of creation will be the days of maths, physics, chemistry, biology and psychology. And on the 6th day we rest.